Cloud. If we cannot solve the problem with the same thing that we used to created it, right? That's the whole theme behind adoption of cloud is you can't approach cloud the same way you approach security all these years. It's just that simple. And so I go to this and what does, back. It's supposed to have a little tagline there, but obviously I need to learn PowerPoint is what does swimming have to do with the cloud adoption, right? And it's real simple. In 1844, the British were really the first doing competitive swimming. You know, they had been swimming all along in the early 19th century. The Greeks are dated back to competitive swimming back as early as 500 BC. But by the end of the 19th century, they had forgotten how to swim. So in 1844, they were starting a competitive swim, and they're using the breaststroke. Slow people like me like that one, right? But they were amazed to hear that there were some people in North America and South America that were doing this other stroke that was faster. And so they invited two Canadians to come over and say, show us your stroke. And these two gentlemen jumped in the water and in 30 seconds had crossed the pool. Much faster than they'd ever seen. So you would think at this moment that everyone was excited, like, wow, look at this. No, they called it grotesque. They described the swim stroke as violent, like a windmill that was piercing the water. So they had come to here to compete for a silver medal. So you would think the Europeans would have said, well, here's a silver medal. Can you teach us this thing? No, they had taken the approach, we need to make the breaststroke faster. It took 31 years before a European went to Brazil and actually drew out how the freestyle happened. He adopted the upper body stroke while you're still using the backstroke's frog kick. But it was more European. So why the heck is he telling us a story? Because they couldn't learn a new stroke because of cultural norms. And I believe we're struggling with the adoption of cloud because of cultural norms and traditional thinking. Here are the challenges. Every single day, every CISO, CIO, cyber expert, everybody struggles with these challenges. We'll name a few. I'll go right here to this little lower hand quadrant. Staffing. You heard it in the panel a few minutes ago. There is a worldwide shortage of cyber professionals. Okay? Competencies. What the staff do we have? Do they have all the skills we need? Organizational awareness, what's going on? A denial of service attack, $38 a month. Amount of devices per device that mobile malware costs a global organization, $9,500. The average cost of a breach, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? But yet, everyone will agree that these have these challenges, but won't agree that this cloud could possibly be the solution. They don't give us enough transparency. We don't understand what they're doing. I don't own my data anymore. It's not about security, folks. It's really about cultural norms. So compliance. If you talk to any CISO, they will tell you we sit over here. We have some compliance on steroids. Most of my budget goes to compliance each and every day. But yet the organization wants innovation. They want cloud computing. They want mobile devices. They don't want BYOD, thank God. They want agile environment. They want telework. Okay? They want users to be able to work wherever they want, when they want to work, but we're going to focus on compliance. Because, see, that's what OMB puts out. Those are the numbers that are there. Okay? And that's where we have to be. So what am I telling you all this for? And why did I put this slide up here, right? I'm talking industry, how to get government to, because I'm going to tell you, the government's still confused on what the different services are between an IIS, a PAS, and a SAS, okay? Help them understand what part is provider managed versus what they have. They have whatever control they want. Pick the model. I've been in organizations where I try to go infrastructure as a service completely. The vendor community, well, I'll just say the vendor. It wasn't vendor community. The vendor and the staff. What about the people? Now, this was a very large organization. It was going to take 5 to 10 years to stand up the entire infrastructure as a service and migrate everything over. We all know the aging workforce of governments will be retiring. Attrition was an easy strategy towards going this. So I joke a lot. You didn't expect the CISO to be having this conversation, did you? Not at all. But cloud adoption is coming. And some of you may be sitting in the audience saying right now, I mean, because this is a packed house, and saying, cloud adoption is here. No, it's not. Why? Yes, every organization, I would guarantee that 100% of organizations are somewhat infiltrated by some kind of cloud usage. That's not adoption. Adoption is when we stop having a conversation, should we go to the cloud? Adoption is when we really start to say, cloud is our strategy. I had a CISO one time tell me that it's not as secure as what I do. I said, really? So you're configured properly, you're standardized, and you can deploy automation across the enterprise. Well, I didn't say that. I said, they can. How are they not more secure? So if I got hacked tomorrow, right, like I said, non-attribution, so you get a real Sean when you're non-attribution. You know, you have a couple precedent here, you get a much more mild version. But if an article comes out tomorrow, God forbid, I get a call tonight at midnight, and the EPA's been hacked, the article's going to have one sentence, EPA was hacked. The rest of the 5-paragraph article is going to be about, should we go to the cloud? Is the cloud really secure? Amazon, let's say I'm at Amazon. So if you're from Amazon, I'm just using an example. Please forgive me. Is Microsoft now has a competitive advantage? Let's talk the numbers. If you learned the quarterly reports, which, by the way, coincidentally all came out on the same day, right now Microsoft is the top run rate of cloud. Now, it's a little bit unfair how they measure because they throw a lot of stuff in the Office 365 and a bunch of other things, right? But they're estimated to make $15.2 billion in cloud services this year alone. Amazon, 14.6, had a run rate of 14.6, $3.66 billion in the first quarter. IBM, 3.5. Salesforce will hit $200 million in public sector business alone this year. In 2015, $70 billion was the enterprise of cloud services. $70 billion, 2015. The estimates at the end of 2019 will be $141 billion. So cloud's coming, okay? And the public sector has to come with it, okay? We can't scale to the level that it's gonna take with Internet of Things in cloud. Not possible. No one can, okay? So what are we gonna do? So this is what I would tell you. So I'm treating this as I would talk to you if you came in. Jeremy Young's here, Ken Adams in the back. They've been in my office. They've sat down with me when they came to do an office call, okay? I need to know how you're gonna help me with my governance. Because see, it's not just about a product. Everybody comes in my office and says, I have the product that's going to make it best for you. First thing, everybody says it, so I don't even listen to it anymore, okay? There's not a product that's going to make my life that much easier. There's too much on the front side and back side of it. Let's talk about CDM. CDM phase 1. If you read the reports, at the end of it, I'm going to have asset management of hardware and software. But am I? Or am I going to have a software inventory list and a hardware inventory list? And then I have to clean it up. And then I have to match it to MAC and IP addresses into a user, to an office location, and a phone number and email. So when something happens, I know how to get to that person immediately. Same way with software. How am I going to get to a approved products list from a software inventory list? Those are the things that we're facing, but we oversell what we're going to actually deliver in a lot of ways. But we need to talk about enterprise risk management. We need to talk about compliance and audit. You know, David from the Moffitt Cancer Center is in the audience, and we talked the other day about the transparency of the vendors or the cloud providers and what they need to be able to bring, especially in the federal government and in healthcare. We're on steroids when it comes to compliance. I just said it. Most of my budget, 95% of my budget is compliance. So when you come in, I get around, okay? I speak a lot. You come into my office, you should know my problems. When I was at VA, I was a lot more in print as far as it, but I speak enough at enough places that my pain points aren't hard to know. They were that bottom left quadrant. Staffing, competencies, organizational awareness. I didn't talk about technologies. People, process, technology. Starts with people. We have to educate. A lot of our leadership, our business customers, a lot of our business have been better to adopt cloud technology than actually IT has been, by the way. And I've embraced that. When I was at VA, I encouraged it with some guidelines, which was Salesforce was the primary part of cloud that I used. And what I told them was, you can go out there and you can give them a license to do a pilot. When they approved that pilot, I knew they had to come back. I knew they had to come back. They needed money for licenses. They needed money for integration. Good thing about VA is $4.2 billion and appropriated, so you can't, it still has shadow IT. Don't let me fool you. But they had to come back for funding. So I knew that. And I used to my advantage, but guess what? Salesforce went at VA alone from $115,000 to they're on their way to $10 million a year in business. And the customers have embraced it like wildfire. And I recommend that. When you have a great platform, and again, I'm not trying to sell Salesforce up here, but when you have a great platform, if we're in a platform as a service, the great thing about that is you can develop it like a small business, and it quickly scales to a large business, an enterprise approach. Got their FedRAMP. Someone came to me the other day and said, hey, we want to talk to you. You know, we're close to our FedRAMP, and your customers have been really interested. I said, get your FedRAMP. You don't have an issue with me. You did it. I've also gone to other organizations. I've gone to FEMA's and other organizations and say, have you approved this software? Sure have. Will you share me your ATO package? Sure will. I review the package. I look at the risk they accepted, and if I feel like I can accept the same risk, I put a cover page on and send it to the CIO for approval. Why do I need to go through another process to approve it? If a peer, I've looked at his process, I've looked at his ATO, I understand his risk, and I accept it. I don't have the bandwidth. But if I don't start to support these things for my customers, then they're going to go shadow. They're going to find a way. Customers are resilient. They will find their way to get to it, and you'll be happy to sell them. I don't blame you. It's a strategy. It's a strategy. But start with people. Every visit, I mentioned, again, Jeremy Young, Ken Adams, and look, if anybody else has visited me, I apologize. I'm getting old, probably need glasses at some point. But I will tell you is, if you come in, I'm looking for value. When you come in to see me, I've got to understand I'm going to walk out of the room better in some way. I'm going to be smarter. I'm going to understand your product. I'm going to be smarter, but that's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking to be smarter, right? I don't know about as dumb as a rock. I'm a Boston kid from the street. You remember Good Will Hunting? You remember the genius guy who used to go on the board, play Matt Damon? I was Ben Affleck, okay? That's who I was, okay? I was, you're here in 5 years drinking beers with me, you know the movie. But it really does. It starts with people. We have to educate. Every time you encounter me or anybody like me, you should be saying, how am I going to help them understand? If you're in the business units, you have intel. If you're talking to other pieces of IT, you have intel. Bring that intel. Help me understand what's going on. Those are the kind of things I talk about all the time. I have industry that comes into my office all the time. Not all the time, but as a VA, when I was chief of staff at OINT, I would have people come into my office, and I'd say, they would tell me about their company. 5 years ago we did this. What'd you do in the last 5 years? I don't know. Okay. You have a capability statement? No. So why'd you come here today? Well, I thought we were just going to say hello. I said, I work 13 hours a day. I gave you a half hour of it. You thought I had time just to say hello. That person never got another appointment on my calendar. Because, again, I meet with 4 to 5 industry per week. So I stay kind of relevant in what's going on and what the latest things are. But it's got to be value. So think about the pain points. Think about when you're talking about those things. Now, everybody's like, Sean, this is basic BD. What are you talking about? Right? But it's the approach when we want to talk about cloud. Because we're stuck in a traditional way of thinking. So the more value you bring when you walk in the room, the more credibility and they will accept it. Data security, we're all going there, right? This part doesn't change, okay? If we're gonna start modernizing legacy applications, I love it because security, now I have less vulnerabilities. I have systems that are more secure. They're coded with modern code, they're in a more modern environment, love it, okay? But I still need to know about data discovery, data classification, data governance, identity management, cloud access, continuous education, all those things. If you're talking about these things, these are the conversations that we need to have. Not just, I have the greatest thing since sliced bread. It really isn't hard, but I think we're so busy just trying to get people into it that I believe once we get to a point that they trust where we're going, and I said this earlier in the panel, if you weren't in the panel, I'll say it again, is I'm not saying this about all cloud solutions. I look at cloud the same way I look at encryption. Public clouds, publicly scrutinized encryption mechanisms or methodologies, okay? I want it out there. I want to know people have gone after it. I want to know people have banged on it. And I want to know you're still here. Cool. Okay? You're still here. So I grabbed this from Sky Networks, who's right outside the door, not to sell them, because I thought this was a really good diagram. I did not know what a CASB was before I was asked. Okay? And it's just one example of a technology to help you get here. But CASBs really excite me because I think they take the security conversation off the table now. Now we have the visibility, the data protection, the threat protection, right there. I'm not saying it's I just said it earlier. I mean, you just said the technology is not a single pill to swallow that's going to solve all our problems. No. There's some other great vendors in this row that have equal great solutions. But what you want to do, visibility for me. And so let's talk about CASBs and what I've told them. Don't sell it as a security product. Sell it as a Fatera product. When you can see what you're doing from a sanctioned and an unsanctioned piece, now all of a sudden you just created another avenue for my security funding. Don't sell it as a security. You're probably not going to get funded. Sell it as, I'm going to tell you where all your shadow IT in the cloud is. CIOs get excited about that kind of stuff. I talk about security, they glaze over and say, okay, thank you. You're not getting any money, but thank you. Okay? Fatera so we're at ICIT, we're at a security conference, but security isn't about in getting additional funding. Believe me, my budget is so small, I sometimes can't find it. And so when I look at these things, I'm always looking at ways to approach this to the CIO and to the administrator and say, we need to make this investment. If it's just security, it's not going to happen. The other thing is we have to find ways, Centrify's in the audience too, is looking at ways do we couple the best of breed tools with people. It's the only way we're going to reduce the number of people we need. Okay, there are technologies out there that can reduce the volume of things we need to look at from incident response and forensics and all those things. Well, then do I need a 12 to 50 person SOC, or do I need a 5 to 10 person SOC with the right tools? But acquisitions aren't written that way, right? So Jeremy and I were talking the other day about security as a service. Endpoint is a service. How do we do that? What I've told my staff is if the acquisition makes it LPTA, it's as a service. It's a commodity purchase. It's as a service. I don't even talk about LPTA contracts anymore. They're not going to, security can't be LPTA unless it's a big enough scoped contract that I can find ways to squeeze the lower end folks so I can get higher end folks, the forensics and incident response. But we all know that doesn't always work as well. The 4 pillars of a CASB: visibility, compliance, data security, threat protection. Again, if you were at the panel earlier and you're here today, you're going to hear me talk about visibility. Look, we cannot protect what we don't know about. Many of us, especially in the federal government, are so blind it's ridiculous. There's so much going on. Whether you're in medical, research, EPA, we have this Internet of Things with research devices, medical devices. It's a $1 billion problem. The healthcare sector is a healthcare security is a $5.5 billion sector. Only $390 million on average annually is spent on medical device security. It's going to bite us. Some things are still on XP. I've even heard some things are still on NT. I remember when I was trying to get rid of XP in environments, I couldn't find them. It was a printer that looked like an XP device. I had to decide whether to waive it. It wasn't an XP machine. It was actually just a printer that talked and squawked like the XP. So I want your products. Probably can't afford many of your products with my budget. We're working on that. But it's got to be a value proposition. You got to come in helping me understand how to get to it. You know, you can get excited about it. You know, I've had people come into my office, again, to know where you're hunting. You know, we really want to do business in the VA. I'll use them as an example, because I don't get quoted anymore about VA. But I want to do business in the VA. Okay, great. What vehicle do you want? Mobus. Okay, we put out like 10 things on Mobus, man. What else? Are you on T4? No. Do you bet on T4? No. How serious are you about doing business in the VA? If you didn't even go for the main vehicle. You know, if you want to hunt, you got to have a strategy too that they can get me. The worst thing you can do is come in my office and get me excited about an opportunity and say, how do I get to you? We could find a prime. Okay. Probably not going to happen. Okay? Now, if you walk in with the prime and say, hey, we got a great partnership, this is what we'll do, this is what we can get excited, hey, Sean's a prime on the contract. Okay, that's a different conversation. Hey, everybody can't be a prime. Okay? But you should already know, the same person that said he didn't have a capability statement and all that, and I said, well, what vehicle you got? Whatever you want. Okay. You really weren't serious about this visit today, were you? So what is next? And then we're going to go into conversation. This is really what this is meant to be. Help your customers realize they already have components in the cloud. Many of you already know where those are. Tell them where they are, okay? Kind of hard to be scared of something you're already doing. Just don't know it. Be ready to answer the hard questions and be transparent. You should know my pain points, if you can. But you all know as well as I know, the industry knows more about what's going on in EPA than I do. So use that intel to your advantage. Come in and talk. You know what the pain points are. Believe me, if you sit in my office, anybody who sat in my office knows what my pain points are. Engage the CIO, CISO, IG. IG's killing us with cloud. Educate them. Educate them. But CDM, I had DHS and I were going back and forth on what I feel is policy. They said no. And I said, but you do see the problem. If we're having this dialogue here, the CDM office, what do you think is going to happen during the audit? I'm going to have the same conversation with the IG. So, DHS said who? Well, show me the policy. I don't have a policy. Well, yeah, okay, you're unsatisfactory. Visibility. I will say it, because it's not for attribution. We care way too much about compliance and less about security. And compliance does not mean secure. Okay? Does not. I also am not a big fan of our ATO process, just so you know. Okay, I think it's a checklist. It does some good scannings, but it's not going to get us where we really want to be. Educate yourself and your staff on the customer's needs and pain points. We cannot keep up with the growth of cloud, and OIT, I said this. Again, I said this earlier, don't make this about security when you're trying to sell something. Make this about how we're going to solve problems for EPA, OEI. Okay? If it's just a security, I can tell you how much money I have left. I'm in the hole. Probably not going to buy. You find me a way to make this a cross OEI conversation, we're in a different ballpark at this point. Start talking about legacy modernization, that ears perk up in the other building where the CIO sits. You talk about ways to save or do CIPIC better, and I can make investments and I can save money, real money. Can't say I'm going to save $20 million a year and then I save 20 cents because they're going to come take it and I don't have that kind of money. So, have those real conversations. So this was really meant to be a discussion. This is like an issue call. You're in my office. You can ask anything, and I have no media in the room, so I will answer you unbelievably honestly. And by the way, Barham, you better not release this to the media afterwards. So, questions? No questions? I did pretty, yes?
So just something you said earlier about you think that eventually the entire government either should or will move to cloud. Does that include the intelligence community?
They're already in it.
Entirely, though.
They're one of the, I'm going to say, I think on average, they're one of the biggest adopters.
Will you imagine them being able to go 100% into it?
I don't know if we'll ever be 100%. I really do think we're going to be in somewhat of a hybrid solution as the final resting place of this topic. But I think $141 billion by the end of 19, I see a much bigger presence from the federal government in the cloud. But I do, from what I understand, at least what people tell me, because I'm not IC, is the IC community is very hard, which make you think, like, so why are we struggling? Go ahead.
Question for you, response to him. We secure cloud DevOps for the intelligence community, and they're ahead of everyone else there. So, to echo your point, my question to you is, at EPA, how much software development or kind of DevOps is actually happening, or continuous integration is actually happening, either internally or from your vendors?
There's a good amount. There's still a good amount. Robin just left. Robin Gonzalez just retired from federal service, who was our CTO and over Adista. They have quite a bit of presence. I have not seen any of their products coming before me yet, but I haven't been there that long. But they have quite a bit. They have a complete digital services team. Questions? Yes? Hey, Dad. Yeah, so the question is, what do we think the best way to bring innovative technologies into the EPA, especially for small businesses? EPA so it's got to be cost effective, right? If you have an innovative solution that's very cost effective, but we struggle with procurements like everybody else, okay? We struggle hard. And so just education, back to the education piece. Start with the people, making those rounds, get enough going. And so you're gonna think this is crazy for me to say, but I'm gonna say it, is don't be afraid to talk to the customers, okay? By the way, I know no one is. But talk to the customers to get them interested and have them bring it forward, okay? And don't be careful getting into shadow IT, because then you become part of the problem, not the solution. But if the customers get interested in this and they bring it up as something they want, so when they get in front of the senior IT leader meetings and those, and they bring up the technology or they bring up the innovative solutions, then it's going to get a lot more traction, okay? Because you're hitting the IT side, but you're also bringing the business. The other piece is, and I will say this, and this will not be popular, I promise this right now, but not all smalls are ready to prime, okay? And you're like, well, yeah, okay, that makes sense. It doesn't. I've been in rooms where smalls have said, I don't understand how to do business with the government. My answer is, you probably shouldn't be doing it directly yet. You should be partnering with another company that does and subbing to understand the sector better. Because here's what the last thing I want, as someone who definitely wants to go into small business one day, is when a small business goes into a sector before they're ready, acquisition ready, they're ready, and they can't do the work because they just don't understand what they've gotten themselves into. And I'm not saying that's the case, David, but when they do that, they only make it harder for the other smalls in the long run that are ready. Okay? We got to make sure it isn't just about, it is definitely about service after the sale. We have to make sure that we can deliver. And I believe that smalls can do it. I'm a big proponent. When I was in industry, I only worked for smalls. There's a great capability. There's a great bit, even before Agile became the go-to way. They're very agile. But just if you don't understand how to go after business at an agency or stuff, partner. There's nothing wrong with partners. Believe me, I do understand with the margins today that can be difficult. That is a very difficult strategy. But at the same time, it's about delivering added value in the long run. All right, I think we got time for one more question. I promise to end on time. I'm already late. Going once, twice. Oh, there you go. I knew I'd get one.
Real quick.
Yeah.
I'm based in New York City. As I walk around, and this is a question that I've often thought about, but because of today's session, I figure I ask. I never looked it up. As I walk around New York City, there's many of these little boxes labeled EPA, and they're peppered throughout New York City. Typically, you'll find it by release manholes or by buildings that might be near something, I guess, that's there's concerns about gases. But I look at them and I'll see cables, Ethernet cables plugged in. So I think to myself, well, this is the original IoT. They must be 10 years old, right? So I guess my question for you is the idea of IoT. Do you still consider it new at the EPA, or is this something that, we're a bit ahead of the game? We've been doing this 10 years or more.
Yeah, I mean, so good question. I don't know what those devices are. It's the CIA just spelled it EPA. So I think I'd say, and coming in real quick is, I'll just say this. Just because you put those kind of things out there, medical too. Medical has, a medical device can go 10, 15 years, okay? They've been out there for a while. It's the proliferation, but it's matched with IT consumerization and wanting what I want when I want it. And those two combinations have made IoT a huge problem for all of us because customers want it and they want it now. And we have no recourse but to try to figure out how we're going to solve this. It's either say no or try to figure out how to enable the business. And we know if we say no automatically and don't try to find a solution, they're going to find a solution. So we're trying to figure out that balance. And plus budget constraints. Cyber is constantly under attack for their budget. It's one of the first areas that gets cut if you don't have a leadership that really understands its value, long-term and short-term. All right, thank you, everyone.